Hello and welcome to another High Cotton Aviation YouTube video. Today is going to be a guided tour by yours truly of the Stafford Air and Space Museum in Weatherford, Oklahoma. I got the privilege of visiting this museum a few weeks ago. It's a wonderful museum. If you're around the area or you're ever traveling through Weatherford, Oklahoma, I would highly recommend going to see this museum. They have a wide range of aircraft, and not only do they have airplanes, which we love obviously on this channel, but they even have some space exhibits because Thomas P. Stafford was a part of the U.S. Air Force, I believe, and then went into the astronaut program and flew on a mission there. It's a very cool museum. They even have, you know what? I'll let you see that in the tour. They have over 20 historic aircraft displays, including artifacts from the Space Shuttle program, Hubble Space Telescope, and the MIR space station. They have a moon rock, a Titan II missile, a Mark VI re-entry vehicle, and a Gemini spacecraft. Those are just some of the many exhibits that I'm going to show you here today. So without farther review, let's get into the tour. To start off our tour here, we're looking at their stat displays that are outside of this beautiful museum in Weatherford, Oklahoma. There's an A-10, an F-18, and if you know what this jet that it's pointing at right now is, please let me know. As we walk into the museum, I wanted to give you a little backstory on the museum itself. It's named after Thomas P. Stafford, and it sits on the Thomas P. Stafford Airport in Weatherford, Texas. As we walk in, there is a model of one of the Wright gliders, one of the early models that eventually led to the Wright Flyer, which we'll see here in a minute, a replica of. There's a spacecraft up next, followed by a model of the beautiful SR-71 Blackbird. This is now just a panning shot of the museum entrance and the gift shop. There's an F-22 model and a F-16, which we'll get back to later. Here is the Wright Flyer, made by the Wright brothers, and they tested these on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. One of the Wright brothers did end up dying in a crash in one of the later models. I believe it was Orville. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If you notice something different about this plane, the elevator is on the front of the plane, rudder still being in the back, and there's no ailerons. This was used weight shift and had cables tied to whoever was flying's hips, and they would pull the wings and flex the wings to turn this plane. It was made out of different bike parts, such as the chains, the gears, the hubs, and even some frames were used to support this. The landing gear that some models had, later models of the Wright Flyer had, did have bike tires. There was these very cool touch displays here at the museum. They would tell you about everything about the planes that were there. Some of them would show you aerodynamics, some of them would show you just parts of the plane. There's a propeller of the Wright Flyer that I panned to right there. Very cool for this early flight. And this sign that I'm pointing at now had a light behind it, and I apologize for the very poor videography here. You cannot see that sign now that I'm realizing. As we continue on, in the tour, there is a model of the Wright Flyer. Whoever did that model did a very good job. Very nice model. There's also a rotary engine here. Piston pounders, as a lot of people like to call them. And if you click that green button that you see my cousin pressing there, it will show you the rotation of the engine and how it works. which was very cool. There's the sign if you want to pause and read that. And as we continue on, you will see another early plane hanging from the ceiling. It's a model, of course. And then we move on to the Spirit of St. Louis, which is the first plane to cross the Atlantic. Fun fact about this plane is you can see it had no windows out of the front of the cockpit. He was relying strictly on looking out his side windows and his engine instruments, because it filled up the space where the window usually would be. You guessed it, gas tanks, to get that long flight across the Atlantic complete. What we're looking at right now is another early tricycle gear plane, and then this biplane is an early British plane, I believe. I do not happen to know what plane that is. If you know, please let me know. I do not believe it's a Jenny. It might be, but I do not believe so. There's 2 machine guns mounted on top, but those, unlike some that we'll look at later, did not have the system to stop them from shooting off their propeller. They just had to hope and pray that their propeller would still be there after they finished firing off some rounds. Luckily for us, they did have the Spirit of St. Louis open to look at. On the inside, you could not get in, but you could look at it. And as we're going to see here in a second, it wasn't a very comfortable flight across the Atlantic, but he got it done. As he'd be sitting in this wicker basket, I'm assuming he would have some cushion there, but that's just a pretty much wicker basket, if you will. It's a chair made out of just a wicker chair. And as you could see, there was no view out of the front of that. As we move on, there's a model of a Nazi airship, much like the Hindenburg. And now we're going to move on to the space section, where we have several rocket boosters. And there was this very cool theater that showed you the history of flight, pretty much. And then you could click a button and it would show you the history of Thomas P. Stafford, which the museum and the airport are named after. As we continue on, this is an early rocket, and the creator is that cardboard cutout right there. I don't know how well you'll be able to, but if you want, you can pause and read those signs. We're going to move on to the rocket models. And if you notice, they get bigger as time goes on, as much of aviation does, and the space program for that matter. There's what we were looking at, is that first one. And then it continues to go up into my favorite rocket, the Saturn V, and then the space shuttle missions with the shuttles and the boosters. It then moves on to some later models and the newest ones that have recently been to space. We'll continue around, we'll see the backside of those in a second. As we continue around, I want to say that this museum is very well put together and has some of the coolest artifacts I've seen in a museum in a while. So if you get the chance, please check this museum out. Here's some of the newer ones, including one of the SpaceX rockets, which I believe is that one on the far left. There's 2 rocket boosters from one of the missions that are on that cart right there. Try and get a close-up here for you. You gotta remember that these shells that this rocket is coming out of have to withstand extreme heat and extreme cold when they're not on in space. There's the backside of those rockets I was showing you earlier. Here's some astronauts and the missions they flew on these cool displays by the wall here. This is a public museum. You can go to it any time. It's in Weatherford, Oklahoma, like I stated in the intro. I believe you can also find their website if you look up Stafford Air and Space Museum. There's another rocket booster of some sort. Or nozzle, excuse me. And then we'll continue around. If you notice anything I could do better on these videos, please let me know. And if you notice anything that you like, if you like the video, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to see more content, hit the subscribe and click that notification bell. But that's only if you want to. No hard feelings if you don't. As we continue around, there's some more displays that we're coming up on. I believe that what I'm showing you right now is a model room where they go work on those models. And the first thing we're going to see as we come around this corner, that console looking thing to our right that I am panning to is a control panel from Mission Control in Houston, Texas. Being a fellow Texan myself and being to Houston many times, this is pretty cool to see. I've yet to be to the NASA facilities in Houston to get a tour of that, but I hope to sometime soon. That would be very cool. There's a re-entry craft, I believe. And we're going to continue on. Yes, I was with my family on this one. So you'll see random videos of my sister, my cousin, my brother. They were having as much fun as I was here. Because we're all aviation nerds after all. If you even if you're not, this would be a great museum to check out. It's an awesome museum, even if you're not an aviation buff like some of us. Decided to get a little video or picture of me in the little cutout there. There's me and my brother. Yes, I am a twin, if you were wondering. But we were just messing around there, having a good time. Because after all, anyone can in this museum. It's an awesome museum. I can't say that enough. How amazing this museum is. And this thing that's spanning the entire width of this room is, I believe, an entire rocket module. And that would be what was on top. On loan from the Museum of the U.S. Air Force. Again, you'll see that with a bunch of these aircraft and rockets. I do eventually hope to go to that museum and maybe give y'all a tour. That is the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. As we continue on, I believe that is a testing module there. And here's a spacesuit from the later Apollo missions, which looks kind of comfy, to be honest. I'd wear that to sleep. No, in all seriousness, this is what kept our astronauts safe while they were in space there. Here's the end of that rocket here. This is just one of the sections, because you can see it has those rocket boosters, not even the main rockets. So you can just imagine how big this was. Trying to get you a nice view. Sorry about me randomly pointing at stuff sometimes, blocking your view. I try to keep that to a minimal as we move on. In front of us is a huge rocket booster, which was about 7 times bigger than those ones I showed you earlier, but same concept here. Like I said, those have to withstand extreme temperature deviation. So it's quite a feat of engineering there. Kind of get you a little view of this corner. And there's another rocket booster. If you didn't know, I'm also kind of a tractor nerd, so I had to get y'all a video of this. But what it's saying here is it had as much power, that rocket booster had as much power as, I believe it said, 16 of these tractors, which I believe is 9RX. So if we have any tractor buffs in the audience, there you go. Here's a rocket booster here, another one. You'll see that is a reoccurring thing here. They have plenty of those, which is very cool in my opinion. Here's Snoopy, which would help them remember their safety procedures after one of the Apollo missions failed. They used Snoopy as a safety guy, and he would remind them of their safety procedures. There is a replica of the Apollo 11 mission. And here is a mock-up training simulator of, I believe, the lunar landing module. Let you take a good look at the controls there. As we continue around, I'm going to get you a closer look at that Apollo 11 mock-up. As you'll notice, these spacesuits are representing ones that were inflated, unlike that one earlier that was just what it would sit like on the ground. They also have the full packs on in this one. This was crazy to see just how huge the suits were and how many nozzles and tubes were on these suits. As we swing around here, there's a panel to our right from one of the modules. And I do not know what that is right in front of us over there. If anyone knows in the comments, please let me know. There's Snoopy again. As we swing around, there's some more space suits and some more just space memorabilia. There is a bronze statue of Thomas P. Stafford. Like I said, the museum and the airport that backs up to the museum are named after him. He was from Weatherford, Texas. Oklahoma. I'm sorry, Weatherford, Oklahoma. And he flew a mission with NASA. He was also part of the U.S. Air Force, I believe. Gonna swing back around and see Snoopy. And here is I believe, a Russian MiG-21 cockpit. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But I decided I'd get y'all a good up close and personal look in this cockpit. I could not get in, but I could get y'all a view of being in that cockpit by putting my camera down in there. As you can see, not a lot of room to work in there. The U.S. Air Force did end up acquiring a MiG-21 and training our pilots by making them fly against MiG-21s in what people know as Top Gun. And here, there's plenty of jokes of, it's just an empty room here. But this is, of course, the stealth F-117 Nighthawk. The Dorito. As you can tell, it's very streamlined, very angled. And if you can see under there, I didn't get a very good view of there, but it could carry quite the payload. As we go look out the front window here, there's a B-2 Spirit model above me. And this looks back out the window of that parking lot we started in. Very well set up, this museum. There's that B-2. And you might have seen some little stars around everywhere. Those are a scavenger hunt you can do. Here's me climbing into a replica cockpit they have here for people to test out. Having flown before, I felt right at home in this cockpit. And it just made me so much more ready to fly. You can mess with every single button in this cockpit. And it's quite a cool experience to get to do. There's me just messing around with buttons for a little while. I want to give a big thanks to my sister for helping me record some of this stuff. Also, I want to give a big thanks to this museum. They're an amazing place, and they do take donations, so make sure to go check out their website. I believe it's under the Stafford Air and Space Museum. Here, I got you a view inside the cockpit, And as we're finishing up our tour, I want to thank you for watching. And like I said, if you like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up. And if you feel like subscribing, please do. Like I said, don't have to, but it would help me out a ton. If you have any feedback, please leave it in the comments below. Here's some just more footage of me messing around in this cockpit. They have an amazing gift shop here. And if you're in the Weatherford area, please check it out. Weatherford, Oklahoma, that is. And have a great day.